That's a great. I actually think that might be one of my favorite De Niro performances. Certainly my favorite Charles Grodin performance, but and Dennis Farina is awesome in that.
The late Dennis Farina.
Yeah, I hate saying that.
And Philip Baker Hall's in it.
Yep. I mean,
Joe Pantoliano.
Good. So good. Such a good movie.
And that's a movie that really, I mean, that's when Martin Brest would direct with a certain amount of brevity. And his movies were fun. But that's a movie that really survives on chemistry. The fact that they were two polar opposites is absolutely what made the comedy in that movie.
Yeah.
It's just something that, just magical happened between the two of them. Charles Grodin, who has to be one of the biggest dullards I've ever seen, but for some reason in that premise around De Niro, I mean, he just lit up. And Charles Grodin just signed on to star in another movie, the Noah Baumbach's next movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Speaking of dullardism.
Yeah, he had a talk show on CNBC for a long time.
Oh my God, it would put you to sleep.
But he was great though on Carson. When he would go on Johnny Carson, he would always give Carson the hardest time. I mean, it was great.
And of course that was a real break and a real for Danny Elfman to do something
great score
with his great score, very iconic, an iconic score.
Hum a little bit of it for us, Aaron.
I don't remember. You know the thing. Now, well, here's the question: How many here watched any of the made-for-TBS movie sequels?
For Midnight Run?
Yes, with Norm Macdonald in the Robert De Niro role. Anyone see those?
No.
Wait! All right, now you've lost me.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was TBS or TNT. There were like two or three of these made for TV, kind of these like Jack Walsh adventures.
Huh.
With Norm Macdonald.
Man. Dean used to work for Turner. He better know about this.
Yeah, somehow I missed out on those. But De Niro, they've been writing the second Midnight Run for a long time. I think they have a script. He's been wanting to do it for a long time, return to that character.
I actually would welcome that. I really would.
And that was a big deal because that was De Niro's first all-out comedy.
What is all-out comedy? For all the noise and ink that was, wasted when he did the first Meet the Parents and everything. Like De Niro does comedy. Fact is, the thing Midnight Run wasn't a big hit, but everyone knew De Niro could do comedy because he's always done comedy. There's comedy in Raging Bull. There's comedy in Taxi Driver.
What about The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight?
Yeah, there's comedy. There's comedy in Mean Streets. King of Comedy.
Johnny Boy has moments of great humor. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean,
yeah. So he's always had these comedic timing, and I think he's just gotten better. I mean, Silver Linings, he's
Silver Linings, he's divine. I mean, he's divine. Everyone is, but he's really, his timing in that movie, and I think the big scene between him and Jennifer Lawrence is classic. I mean,
yeah. Well, all great actors infuse comedy in their dramatic work. But I mean, this was a lightness that De Niro hadn't really shown before in Midnight Run. So it did feel like a completely new, fresh direction for him.
Yeah.
So I think that praise was justified. 2 days later, July 22nd, we had the sequel to Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which was Big Top Pee-wee. And then we had Caddyshack 2, which was known as
Caddyshack 2.
Which was known as one of the most critically blasted movies that summer, was Caddyshack 2.
It was awful. I mean, I remember just how, I was like I went with my mom to see it, and we just couldn't get over how bad it was. I've never been a big fan of Jackie Mason, and after that, I was really could care less about Jackie Mason.
I just can't believe that. Of the movies that Jerry did go see in theaters, he goes to see Caddyshack 2.
Because I love Caddyshack. I mean, but I went to see Midnight Run. I went to see Die Hard, A Fish Called Wanda. So don't rain on me. But Caddyshack 2 was why I'm nervous about Anchorman 2. To be honest.
Well, I do think they have a little more quality control in Anchorman, and frankly, I mean, let's be honest, the big thing, I mean, whatever you think of the first Caddyshack, when they did the sequel, and there was no Bill Murray or no Rodney Dangerfield, I mean, you didn't
Well,
really...
no Rodney Dangerfield, really, because he had Back to School 2 years before that, and
no Bill Murray.
It was great, but I just really... I was kind of just thunderstruck how bad it was. It wasn't funny. It was just really... was Cliff Robertson in that?
I've never seen... I think I've watched like 10 minutes on
Ted
TV.
Knight was in it, right?
Ted Knight's in the first one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I just couldn't...
The first one, I mean, the second one really plays up the stereotypes big time. I mean, really. It's really quite something to behold.
It's just not a good film.
I will say that it has one of the great pop songs for it of that time. That Kenny Loggins song is amazing. I love that song. That's one of my favorite. I got it on a CD in my car. I love that song.
What was the other film that came out that
Big
day?
Big Top Pee-wee.
So, yeah.
Pee-wee without Tim Burton.
Everyone would get stoned and go see that. That was the big deal of that movie. People would go get stoned and go watch it.
Because a key ingredient was missing. Yes, you had Pee-wee, and there are some good Pee-wee gags. He has a tree that grows hot dogs. It's kind of so there's some wacky stuff in there, but it was missing the Burton touch. And frankly, the TV show is in full blast at this point, so there's also probably a little bit of overexposure.
Yeah, which you got to be careful with Paul Rubens and exposure.
Oh, yeah.
But the Big Top Pee-wee was directed. I mean, it seems like the director would have been suited for something like Pee-wee, because it's Randall Kleiser, the guy that did Grease. Mm-hmm. And actually, the cinematographer of this movie is part of our Art of Cinematography series, Stephen Poster. So it is coming up on the show quite a bit. And Randall Kleiser, I talked to him for our Grease show a couple of years ago, and then I lost the sound file, so we were never able to air it.
Oh, man.
Which sucks. And he was so generous to us. But anyway, well, if you want to see Chris Christopherson and Pee-wee Herman in a movie together, Big Top Pee-wee is your ticket. The next week, July 29th, was Cocktail, which was dreadful, but it really let people know... It really tested, like, if you're a true Tom Cruise fan, you would go see this movie no matter what. And I know
our
women...
Cocktail show is awesome.
The
Paul
thing about
Bassetti, listening to it this week, he loves that show. He loves the Cocktail show.
The thing about Cocktail, what that proved for people, and this is what happens with certain stars, they have this moment, is that they can get an audience to any movie, no matter the quality, and it'll be a hit. I mean, Cocktail I think it made $80 million at the time, and $80 million in 1988 dollars is kind of amazing. I think it's
it was a big hit, but plus I think I did send to Tom Cruise after he did Cocktail, he wanted something with more meat on its bones, and so I mean that same year, at the end of the year, he did Rain Man. He came out with Rain Man, and then he won the fourth the following year. So, I mean, he took his career in a different direction from Cocktail. Cocktail strikes me as one of those movies where he was playing to his good looks. Something that Brad Pitt always dreaded the idea of doing, and kind of veered away from at a certain point.
I think Tom Cruise is one of the smartest people when it comes to he knows what his image is. So he would do these kind of the Tom Cruise movies to offset the other stuff that he, the Rain Man and the 4th of July, because, of course, 2 years later he does Days of Thunder, and also kind of, a Cocktail formula, but it's obviously a little better in Cocktail. But also, the thing about Cocktail, it also has, it's so of the moment in the 80s. It has a very, it's kind of his Secret of My Success kind of movie where, that rise to richness is just kind of, it's just smack dab in the 80s. Everyone's just eating that up.
Tom Cruise looks exactly the same as he did when he did Cocktail. which is incredible. I mean, the man does not age.
And I think now it's just nostalgia that people have for, kind of that 80s yuppie wealth kind of materialism that Cocktail kind of represents. And I think
it also, I mean, it also brought the Beach Boys back to the top of the charts. I remember you could not get away from Kokomo. You heard that song everywhere.
Or Don't Worry, Be Happy.
Oh yeah, you heard that. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, Don't Worry, or the update, the remake of Hip Hippie Shit. I mean, let's be honest. That Cocktail soundtrack was kind of it was kind of a party. It was the party CD, party tape of that summer. Everyone had that.
Well, I went to high school with a girl that was just absolutely madly in love with Tom Cruise, and I remember the day the Cocktail opened, and that Friday in high school, and she was going to go see it, and she was so excited. She was really like the sweetest girl. And I used to be able to make her laugh so much that she'd like pee her pants or something. But the other thing that I knew about her was that she was epileptic, and so I was like, I don't want you to get too excited. I don't want you to go into like epileptic shock or something. And, the things you remember. Anyway, we're up to August.
That's just way too much information, man. But anyway, go on.
We're breezing through the summer of 1988. We're already in the final month, August. We had the remake of The Blob opening up on August 5th. This was The Blob in place of Steve McQueen. We got Kevin Dillon.
And who knew Kevin Dillon would actually go on to be, we'd even be talking about him like decades later in Entourage.
Yeah.
But we saw this. This was fun. I mean, I don't remember it, but I just remember it was all right,
Actually, I do like this. I do think this remake is a good, fun remake.
Yeah.
I do like it. Kevin Dillon was doing well. He was coming off of both Platoon and Heaven Help Us, so he was
Heaven Help Us, definitely, yeah.
So he was a capable actor, and so he's very good in it. And of course, this has the female lead is Shawnee Smith. From the Saw movies.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that I always find so weird. I mean.
And then, of course, the biggest thing is that this is because it was 88, and so the special effects have gotten better, so there are a couple of gags, if you will, that are just kind of awesome. The phone booth gag is terrific, and the theater scene is better.
The theater scene is great, yeah.
Is classic. So The Blob is fun. In fact, I mean, we're talking about, Mark Harmon having 2 movies this summer. Kevin Dillon had 2 movies this summer.
What was the other one?
The Rescue. Do y'all remember
he was
The Rescue?
in that
I don't remember The Rescue at all, so you'll have to...
So he had 2 movies open up on the same day?
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Go Kevin Dillon.
Then you had Vibes that same day, which I just remember watching the trailer a lot in the theater. I never saw it. I watched some of it.
Poor Cyndi Lauper. I mean, you know that after Purple Rain and Desperately Seeking Susan, that part of the whole appeal of being a pop star was to have them feature in a movie. We got to get the whole deal going. It didn't work out for Cyndi Lauper.
No, it did not.
And it's just I guess we can say that it's just kind of a down weekend. I think I was the only one who probably went to The Blob in the theater. I assume.
Yeah, no, I went to see it many times in the theater. I think we went twice because I remember we went back. What we would do is this is when you had 99-cent theaters. Or I guess $1 or whatever. Or, we would go back and see them again because they would play for a couple of weeks. And I remember we went back and saw this again after opening day, and we'd always sneak beers in or whatever, like a duffel bag full of beers. I remember we did that summer. So
good deal.
The next week, awesome. August 10th.
Speaking of beer.
Yeah, speaking of beer, yeah. August 10th was Clean and Sober. Obviously, I've talked a lot about Clean and Sober on the show. We did a show on Clean and Sober. It was
when you think summer movie, you think Clean and Sober.
Well, I'm going to get to that. But Glenn Gordon Caron, it was his first movie, and he was coming off of Moonlighting. So this was really the summer where Moonlighting people transgendered, transferred.
Sybil Shepherd, what did she become?
Transferred to feature film. I think Clean and Sober is one of the great movies about addiction, and Michael Keaton was, for me, one of the great performances that year. And the fact that he was overlooked, I mean, that's always been an Oscar snub that's gotten to me. I don't even know that he was in the conversation for Oscar, and I think he's just so magnificent in that movie.
I know in August, when that movie came out, a lot of people said, "Oh, hopefully he's remembered at Oscar time," and I'm sure there was a campaign. But if you remember, well, then again, if you look, and the thing was, I guess my sense was I think Tom Hanks got his slot, if you will, for the offbeat performance.
Right.
Yeah, no.
Well, I watched it. I mean, it opened in Lakeland opening weekend, and I remember before that theater closed, I went to an orientation for high school, and that day, like right after the orientation, my mom took me to the movies, and I said, I want to see Clean and Sober. And that's what we saw, and I loved it from that point on.
So you were getting ready for high school, and I was getting ready for college. Okay. God, I am a senior citizen on this show. God damn it.
Yeah, I mean, when you think mother-son bonding movie, you think Clean and Sober.
We went to see all that stuff since I had a brother in treatment program.
Right.
I think she took me to a lot of that stuff, like Bright Lights, Big City, and a lot of those movies at that time that dealt with that. I mean, I didn't go see The Boost in theaters, but
when Less Than Zero was a year earlier, so we were getting a lot of that kind of the fallout from the 80s.
It was like I said, it was really in the air at that time,
right?
In a way that it never had been before. So it was a terrible time for Arthur too. But Bruce Willis wanted to do that movie and begged. If anybody listens to our Clean and Sober show and our interview with Glenn Gordon Caron, he begged Glenn Gordon Caron to be able to do that show, and Glenn Gordon Caron said, "No, I really don't want to work with you anymore." But the studio was pushing for Bruce Willis or somebody else. They didn't think Michael Keaton could do it. And he told me stories about Michael Keaton going like undercover, like he and Glenn Gordon Caron would go to a treatment program and they'd sit in on a meeting, and then somebody in the meeting recognized Michael Keaton, and so he had to leave, because obviously it's kind of like an anonymous thing.
Right.
Those groups. Morgan Freeman, Kathy Baker, Emmett Walsh. I mean, such a great cast in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a great Morgan Freeman performance in that it's sort of mentory, but it's not your standard Morgan Freeman mentor role. There's a little harder edge to it.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Emmett Walsh. It's great. Yeah. I got it. Did Glenn Gordon Caron not want to work with Bruce Willis just because Bruce Willis was Bruce Willis in his attitude, or he just wanted to break from working with from Bruce Willis?
I think both. But mostly he couldn't deal with the ego anymore.
Right.
2 days later, now this is the movie that you don't think summer movie. The Last Temptation of Christ. That good old summer movie.
That is totally a summer movie.
That's the dude. You don't get any more summer than that. Harvey Keitel is Judas, but I mean, but I wanted to make plans to go see this with Chris Donnie, and we kept talking when it was going to open up here. We'd go see it, and then I never got to see it in the theater, which always bummed me out. But this topic will always be controversial.
Did it open in Lakeland? I mean,
It did, and what was significant about it was it opened in Lakeland under massive protest. And of course, when I say Lakeland, I mean Lakeland, Florida, for those out there that don't know where I'm from. But because I have a vivid recollection that the church actually went to the theater that was going to show it and said, if you show this movie, we're going to burn your theater down. And he showed it anyway. And I remember the weekend it did open, because I was vacationing somewhere, and it opened at the theater there, and I remember seeing picketers and protesters outside of the theater. So there was a tremendous fury around the movie. And I hadn't seen, the only other time I've seen protesters outside of a movie was when I went to see Fahrenheit 9/11. And I was bombarded by protesters walking out of that movie. So there was like such a fire and a vitriol against The Last Temptation of Christ. And it was all the talk around that time.
Did you see it?
I did. I didn't see it in the theater. No.
I'm in San Antonio, Texas, South Texas, and so this is a very Catholic city. But it did play here. And what was interesting, I do remember going to church on Sunday to I can't remember, it was either 5:30 mass on Saturday or noon mass on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But I did go to churches one time, and so the priest, he it's about to start, and because the movie was coming, and he's like, just to, before the the regular mass started, he's like, just to clear and clarify, get on the record, he's like, I basically, and our priest was a pretty straight shooter. He's like, and basically the paraphrase, he says, look people, I saw the movie. It's a good movie. It's fine. It doesn't say anything blasphemous. So you can go see the movie and it's not gonna, there's nothing offensive. And he's like, the scene that everyone's talking about is like, it's imaginary. It's just speculative.
Right.
It doesn't happen. So it's nothing to get all alarmed about. So our priest said, yeah, no, fine. You can go see Last Temptation if you want. I won't hold it against you. So like that was, so basically the Catholic Church in San Antonio like didn't protest Last Temptation.
There's a book out about the whole argument over Last Temptation and the protests and everything. It came out a couple of years ago. I've been meaning to read it. I'd love to buy it.
William Dafoe remember that movie The Reckoning he was in? Back when The Passion of the Christ came out, and he was on Jon Stewart, and Jon Stewart asked him, there's another movie out, right now that you're probably glad you're not involved with, The Passion of the Christ. It's getting a lot of controversy because, I've had my fill of Christ.
And I just love
the thing about the Passion of the Christ is that, obviously a massive worldwide hit. One of the highest grossing movies ever.
Yeah.
That fate did not reach Last Temptation.
No, it
wasn't. I love the fact of the reason Scorsese cast Willem Dafoe is because he liked his performance in To Live and Die in L.A. And said he saw something there that said, I think he could play Jesus. And it's sort of the antithesis of what he was
ask Gibson to play Christ? So wasn't that a thing that this was a story going around the time of The Passion of the Christ before that came out, that Scorsese wanted Gibson to play Christ?
Jamie?
Somebody told me actually, I forget who told this to me, but they told me that Gibson actually wanted to play it, which would shock me.
Yeah, because I was always told he wouldn't. He was approached to, and he said, "I just can't. This is against my religion." Was the answer that he gives,
Didn't Blockbuster not carry it for the longest time either?
Blockbuster never carried it.
They never carried it. They were the big chain. But so we're talking about all the stuff that's around it. The fact is, this was a great movie, and it is a great movie. And apparently the Academy didn't kowtow because they nominated. This is one of Scorsese's best directing nominations. It's for Last Temptation, made on a shoestring budget. The Peter Gabriel score is iconic, and it's a terrific script by Schrader. And Schrader does a great thing in that screenplay, in that he takes the dialogue out of kind of those biblical epics that Cecil B. DeMille, where it's these and thous and all that kind of stuff, and he wrote the dialogue modern. What would these guys sound like if they were today? And I think that's what made it such. When you do see the film, it's such an immediate film and such a very personal film. And so, it's a great movie.
I remember a lot of people having problems with Harvey Keitel in that movie because of the language of Harvey Keitel and his Harvey Keitel-ness in the movie.
But I think that's what makes the movie so good.
That Steven Seagal did an interview in Movie Line, and I remember that magazine Movie Line. A lot of times they would have interviews that would be kind of inflammatory, and so Seagal's talking about how much he hates Last Temptation, and Scorsese used to be a good director, and Harvey Keitel, it's one of the worst performances he's ever seen. As if who the hell is paying much heed to what Steven Seagal says about quality of acting?
Yeah,
Oh, well, I know I remember he was on Arsenio, and he hated Goodfellas because of the violence. He thought the opening scene in the trunk was horrific.
What a hypocrite.
And gratuitous. So,
wow.
When Steven Seagal says violence is gratuitous, you got to stand up and you got to sit up and pay attention.
Yeah,
because he would know.
But another, I think a good movie opened that day is Tucker.
Mm-hmm.
Tucker opened. That's a really good movie.
I didn't even know her. Yeah, that's a good movie. Jeff Bridges, that's, if Last Temptation was a dream project for Scorsese, I mean, Tucker, in a way, was a big dream project for Coppola. And he brought in Lucas as his partner. And, wasn't that the first time that Jeff Bridges acted with his father? In a feature film?
Yes.
I think
yes,
so.
that was the first time they were on film. He might have had a walk-on on a Sea Hunt episode, but I don't know. But I think that is the first time they ever.
Well, it's not like After Earth. I mean, it's a real gig. I mean.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it's a terrific. I mean, Martin Landau and Joan Allen and a very young Christian Slater. Tucker is a great, just a vibrant piece of
We
filmmaking.
saw that at AFI, of all places, the Kennedy Center. They had a special screening, and we went to go see that. I forget who was there. It wasn't Coppola wasn't there, but there was someone. You got to forgive me. It was like 25 years ago, so I don't remember who was there to talk about the movie afterwards. But it was I just was really blown away by it.
Originally, he wanted to do it as a musical, but that kind of didn't pan out. But the movie has kind of the buoyancy of a musical. I remember there's a lot of fun visuals and a lot of transitional wipes or a lot of visual gags that are just kind of neat to keep the movie going. Tour de force
performance from Bridges. I mean, it is a really great Jeff Bridges performance. He is a really, really over the top, and I mean in the best possible way, performance from him. He's just so vibrant in it.
And plus, Martin Landau got a lot of good notice in that movie too.
Definitely,
right?
yeah.
So both Scorsese and Coppola, I mean, they had movies come out
on the same day, yeah. And this was the big counter programming. I mean, because Last Temptation and Tucker, you don't really think summer movie with those two, but Young Guns opened up on that same day, and that became really popular. That was like the Brat Pack Western.
And it's one of these things. Everyone always bemoans the death of the Western or why Westerns are risky. But the fact is, if you do Westerns like traditionally, or some kind of unique spin on it, they've always managed to make money. 3:10 to Yuma, to Silverado, to Young Guns. I mean,
Django Unchained.
Yeah, Django Unchained. I went to Young Guns and Young Guns. I mean, it's one of those weird things. It's where the acting is definitely better than anything in the script. And Emilio Estevez actually gives a fun performance, and Kiefer Sutherland is actually really good as kind of his counterpart. And Jack Palance and Terrence Stamp are good in the small roles.
That's right. Oh God. Okay. Yeah, they're in this. Okay.
So it's a case of acting actually elevating, kind of mediocre writing, and so it's it's not a.
Well, remember Emilio Estevez really shined in that movie, and I do remember Emilio Estevez's work really well from this period, because did he direct Wisdom that same year?
Yeah, he did that in
88? The following year.
The following year, I think, yeah.
No, the year before. I'm sorry, the year before. 87 was Wisdom. 87 was Wisdom. So he was, he was really getting into a groove.
The following week, August 19th, we had a great Jonathan Demme movie, Married to the Mob, which isn't discussed very much anymore, and I don't even know if it's out on Blu-ray.
I have the VHS of it.
I have the DVD. I don't know if the DVD's in print, but I remember it is out. It was out on DVD, so I do have that DVD. It's one of those. Obviously, it's an Orion film. I would it'd be really nice if Criterion or Shout Factory did something with one of those, or that the Screen Archives would do something with the Blu-ray. No. And I was coming off of Something Wild and Swimming to Cambodia, and Michelle Pfeiffer was coming off of Eastwick.
Witches of Eastwick,
and Dangerous Liaisons was to come in the fall. And Modine, you kind of wonder what decompression was like to go from Kubrick to Jonathan, someone controlling like Kubrick to someone as laid back as Jonathan Demme. It's like
must have been a relief. I mean.
And of course, the big talk on the critic front was Dean Stockwell. He won a lot of critics supporting actor awards.
Yeah, he was so funny. I mean, he's so funny in the movie. I mean,
Tony the Tiger. And we should probably point. I don't know. Should point out something here. And it's just by happenstance. A couple of days ago, I was looking at Alec Baldwin's IMDb filmography thing. 1988 was kind of the Baldwin year. I think he has 5 films in '88, starting with like Beetlejuice. Then of course he's in Married to the Mob. He's in Working Girl. He's in Talk Radio. But yeah, so Married to the Mob has an early Alec Baldwin performance. As
and Michelle Pfeiffer is so vibrant in that movie too. I mean, that was a real. Since she was, she started out obviously with Scarface in the Into the Night movie and Grease 2, but after something like Dangerous Liaisons, where she's all buttoned up.
And Tequila Sunrise. I mean, she's great in Tequila Sunrise.
And also that summer, also that fall. I mean, so she had like 3 movies that you kind of wonder. There was a time when actors could have 2-3 movies a year. Now you're lucky if you can get. Michelle Pfeiffer. Before Dangerous Liaisons and Tequila Sunrise took over and everyone started taking her quote-unquote seriously, she had kind of this spunky comic thing going. I mean, she's, obviously she's, be it Grease 2, be it Into the Night, even Scarface, she's very funny.
You could say she's the humor, many parts of the light parts of the movie, and what's funny.
She has the counterpart Al with her kind of gum-smacking approach. And
she was also in the Animal House TV series, the short-lived TV series Delta House. She was on that too.
Yes, she tries not to. No one tries to talk about that.
No, but you're talking about comedy. I mean, you talk about spin-offs and comedy, but it's really funny. That's how she got her. That was really what the first couple of films and things are.
And the thing about Married to the Mob had a great soundtrack, and I think we all can agree that between Married to the Mob and Prizzi's Honor, these were kind of the antecedents for The Sopranos.
Definitely. Well, Stuart Hellion analyzed this, but
that same day, A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master came out, and actually, this is well thought of among the horror community. Because we had a horror convention here last year, and I know the cast of The Dream Master showed up, and a lot of the horror fans were excited about it. Was this the Rennie Harlin one, or was that the one before it?
No, this is the Rennie Harlin. The one before it was Chuck Russell, Dream Warriors.
How could I forget that?
Actually, I do like Dream Warriors. Dream Warriors is fun. Didn't see Dream Master. I do remember it was one of those things that retroactively you went back to when Die Hard 2 came out. And so you kind of went back and looked at Elm Street 4. I remember, I think the scene Freddy is reanimated in a junkyard by, I want to say, flaming urine from a dog.
That sounds all right.
I couldn't write that in a million years.
I mean, I will say this. Visually, it is one of the more striking of the Elm Street movies. I remember there's a lot of really interesting uses of color, purples and neons and reds that people always talked about.
The following week, we had Amy Irving in Crossing Delancey. Do we have anything to say about that?
I watched it on cable, and the other one, The Big Blue, I remember watching those on cable. I mean,
I remember, I don't remember Crossing Delancey. I remember at the time they were really hyping The Big Blue. And I didn't understand why they were hyping The Big Blue. I just remember I was being inundated with the trailer. And like,
this is Luc Besson, right?
And this is before Luc Besson became Luc Besson, but they were really hyping The Big Blue. I don't think I've ever seen it.
No, but you had Subway was before this, and then you had the one that was like the French version of the Road Warrior, the last combat, the final combat, or whatever, from many years before this, and so there was a style. Like Luc Besson definitely had this style slowly evolving that we get to in Nikita.
Yeah. So it's just never seen it. So.
August 26th, to close out the summer, we got a Costa Gravis movie. Isn't that what Betrayed was?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Betrayed.
Written by Joe Esterhazy, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah. Good old Joe Esterhazy. I always liked Music Box, and this one held the promise of possibly approaching Music Box quality. But
this
was
is
something
before Music Box, isn't it?
The year before.
Either way, I mean, he wrote both. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I liked Music Box. I don't like this one enough. There was something missing where it wasn't as successful. It kind of played off the same thing. Very provocative, but you didn't quite believe it. You didn't quite believe that she would fall head over heels for a man that was a supremacist, a white supremacist.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the storyline is preposterous, so the storyline is preposterous, but also, even if you were to kind of accept the storyline, the movie's violence is so racist and disproportionate from what is basically just, a genre film, that the film is really tone deaf. The manhunt sequence that's kind of the centerpiece of the movie is just so disgusting and so out of it's so out of place in a film that's basically just an FBI procedural.
Right.
That it's just Costa-Gavras just didn't know. I don't think he really understood the weight of his material.
But you could say though that Betrayed has a lot of the gratuitousness that the sexual films have, the Basic Instinct and Sliver and films of those nature. It had some of that.
Deborah Winger actually gives a good performance, but it's just wasted in a film
Wouldn't you say that her performance is important in retrospect, because we don't have that many Deborah Winger performances if you really think about it?
No, I love Deborah Winger, and actually one of her great roles was the movie that nobody saw, which I've always loved, which is that movie Everybody Wins, with she and Nick Nolte. And I remember that script was around for a while. I think Arthur Miller wrote that script, and it was known as one of the great female roles in Everybody Wins. And that was on cable, and I TiVoed it again so I could watch it again. And it's a wacky movie, but I've always loved that movie. She was wonderful, and she just kind of left Hollywood. She had her fill of it.
But she comes back for, there's a big, eulogy that never even came out in theaters, really. And then she did, Rachel getting married. She was in Lola Versus, which I don't really have anything great to say about that. But I remember she
wrote a biography too. So I mean, she's still around. She wrote a biography last year or two ago. But that same day, August 20. Go ahead.
But I'm surprised she asked someone, or maybe they have, and she turned it down. I'm surprised no one's tapped her for a TV series. Seemed to be she would be perfect for a TV series. But go on. Also that same day was Mark Harmon's second movie, Stealing Home, which I got to say, Stealing Home feels like a TV movie, but I kind of don't care. I've always kind of loved Stealing Home. It's a movie that's a flashback within a flashback within a flashback. It's kind of the structure of that movie. I don't know. I can't remember who wrote it. I would like to know what his other screenplay credits are, if he has any, because the structure of that movie is so anti-screenplay 101 that I do kind of marvel at the notion that, I'm going to start a movie off, go into flashback, and then within the flashback I'm going to go into another flashback. It's kind of remarkable. I mean, it is a sappy, tearjerker movie. I don't think anyone can defend it aesthetically, but there are something to be said for sometimes these kind of weird, out of whack movies that somehow they suck you in, despite everything that intellectually you probably shouldn't like this film.
Back to School, The Couch Trip. Those are other things that he wrote. It
was written by the two guys that directed it together too. I mean, it's shamelessly sentimental, but I mean, I just always loved it. There was like some parts Summer of 42 in there, and there's regret, and and the musical score is pure David Foster 80s goodness. I think it was his best music score, actually.
I remember Siskel and Ebert, who eviscerated the movie. I remember Ebert line, and I thought it was awesome, was he goes, I realized, as he's telling Siskel, I know why she killed herself. And Siskel went, why did she kill herself? She killed herself so we could have a movie. There's no other reason for her to kill herself. We have no reason why she's depressed and killed or suicidal. But she has to kill herself so we can have this movie. So that's why she killed herself. Which is just kind of a great Ebert line. I remember I remember that show. They reviewed that film, and of course the other great bad film of that day, of that weekend, The Hero and the Terror.
Oh, did that come out that day too?
Yeah.
Yes. The Hero and the Terror. Chuck Norris, man.
But he looks good though. He looks good still. He's ripped. That's what we were talking about earlier. He's ripped.
He's ripped.
Take your word for it. Now, I guess my question, is that all? Is that all that came out?
You know what I think of when I think of Hero and
Dude, that's awesome. There's
awesome. There's Chris's soundbite.
Dude, that's beautiful. I love you.
Here's my question: is that looking over at this summer that we looked over, and someone, I can't remember a critic, it might have been Carrie Rickey a long time ago, another critic, I can't remember, but they had posited that not only that 1988 was like a one of those banner years, but like the summer of '88 was actually one of those high watermark summers, quality-wise, for film. And there are a couple of films we didn't talk. We didn't talk about some of on the art house scene, because we also had, Wings of Desire and A World Apart. I think we're also that
Stars and Bars, and it is that, and but Wings of Desire, I would say, is the big art house of that.
Art house, World Apart, and then Aria is another one. And so just looking over these titles, this is a pretty kind of, there are, the bad movies are really bad, but some of the good movies, these are kind of sturdy landmarks that probably, I'm sure some of us didn't realize at the time were sturdy landmarks, but it is kind of amazing to look at this list and how many perennials came out in those 4 months.
I think Die Hard may be one of the most, you talk about watershed moments, game changer, because that's the high concept movie. It's, this is the first one. It's a Die Hard. You use the movie to describe a plot. Die Hard in a bus, Die Hard in a plane, whatever.
If you were making your top 10 list from 1988, if you were a critic, you would not have a problem having Last Temptation, Die Hard, Big, Midnight Run, and Bull Durham on your top 10 list. Yeah. And that's 5 films right there. And you still got Roger Rabbit. You still got Roger Rabbit.
You have to have Roger Rabbit in there.
And that's all from the summer, and then Tucker, and that's all from that's all from the summer, and The Great Outdoors. Or that's just me.
Well, no, The Great Outdoors. I saw that too. You know what the thing about The Great Outdoors is? It, you were getting there like John Candy's. There's really something. You had the one Only the Lonely that would come out a couple of years later. It's good, but they don't really know what to do with him. Uncle Buck I thought was funny. But and he dies. Very young.
I remember the day he died and seeing it, learning about it because of the scroll on CNN that day when it first happened.
So should we say real quick what our favorite movies of the summer were?
My 2 favorites are Die Hard and Midnight Run.
I'd add Coming to America to that, and Big.
I gotta go Die Hard, Midnight Run, and Last Temptation. Probably my top 3.
It was a good summer. It was a really good summer. It turned out.
It wasn't one crazy summer because that was 2 years before.
Thank you so much for that. I was waiting for that to come in there.
That was 86.
Like I said, that was 86.